So let me go into this handlers thing because I don't like the handler map or the handlers. Um, and the reason being is there's ambiguity. And the main thing is like there should be an error handler defined in configuration, and that be a prerequisite for building the server at all. Because anytime we have to sort of make decisions in our code like this to have sort of optional things in there, I really, really, really dislike. And actually, let's take baby steps to get there. And actually, we'll take the first step. Oh no. Well, I'm going to take the first step and then explain why this isn't a good solution. So the first thing we could do is finalize. We can say check to see that there is a handler for 404 errors. So if let none equal that. Actually, we could do this. Sure. This is one solution. And now, oh, this is good. This is where the language starts to identify ways where, when it feels bad to do something in the language, you've done something wrong. And the problem, this is purely opinionated. The problem with C++ is it always feels bad. It always feels bad to write code in C++. Therefore, you never identify where the some of the issues are in the code because everything feels like the wrong thing to do. And in Rust, if you find something that feels wrong, then you fix it so it doesn't feel wrong anymore. But you can't ever get that feeling in C++. I like this. It's certainly a big dig on something like C++. So you have to say that in the right context. But that's the thing about Rust. I need a T-shirt that says this. Okay, so here's the thing: is I always want an error handler to be defined because I don't want to have to say, okay, maybe if it's not defined, this is what we're going to do. I don't want the server to make a decision that it needs to go do something else based off of something else. Give me valid configuration always. And what we're going to get to is never make it possible for me to give you invalid configuration. Not through logic, not through policy, but through code. Let me say that again, because I set up another recording here to try to capture what I want to say. In Rust, and I apologize for you watching the video, but this is important. In Rust, if it feels wrong, like if it feels like you're using the language wrong, fix it so that you're not making these sort of concessions in the code. And in this case, I'm going to talk about unwrap, where like we would use unwrap and be able to justify that it's okay. Let's not justify that. Let's make it so that you cannot generate code that is going to be invalid, that you have to make assumptions through sort of policy, procedure, whatever that is. And the statement that I made before is that in C++, everything feels wrong. Everything that you do, doesn't feel right. There's always like ways that you could get into this code that is invalid in some way. So we're always there checking. We're always trying to maybe do defensive programming, or just decide, you know what, we've done enough due diligence. It's just going to feel bad. And in Rust, it can always feel right. And if it feels bad, you fix it. But if it never feels right, you can't find out what good feels like to be able to identify bad to fix good. To fix good, bad. I don't know what that. I don't know if we're getting into. It's a little extreme now. I should probably stop this recording, but I'm having fun. Okay, so let's go forward. I'm going to show you where this is, because here we're saying we can finalize. We want to make sure that we have an error handler already defined. And actually, let's say this: finalize a server, and error handler must always be defined, or this will error. This is through policy. And we could test this. Test no error handler fails. Let server equal server build. We don't register an error handler. We try to finalize on and this should be an error. Assert that server is error. Cool. We wrote a test to be able to test that. Now, because there must be an error handler, this code here can change, but it's going to change in a way that we feel really bad about it. So let error handler equal handlers got get yeah. Yeah. This is what we would need to do. Like this is the right thing to do, but we've already defined, or we've already made that assertion that it's always going to have one. So we could argue that we can unwrap. And then, according to sort of policy, we have to state that we can unwrap here because in the builder. And this is right. But this makes me really nervous. And even adding this makes me nervous because, like, we have a way to get here where we have to justify why we're doing the bad thing. And unwrap is the bad thing here. Because we're saying that handlers must have that. But it doesn't have to. It only has to have that through policy and implementation, but we're making that sort of concession here. So here's how to fix it. Having this handlers here, like we cannot create a handlers struct unless we have an error handler defined. We can have this fail. You know, there's a set. This would be an infinite set if this could not fail. So we're going to get rid of handler map because that'll make our code just bomb out. So now we're going to use handlers here. We're going to use handlers type there. not for the server builder. The server builder still needs to use the handler map. Let's still have that type. But now we don't have to put in option. We're undoing some of the stuff I was doing before. And I'm going to claim that I knew that before. So our server builder can have handlers and an error handler, which is going to be an option of a handler. Because while we're building it up, it may be in an invalid state, and that's okay. That's the point of a builder. I really actually like this now. So in here, we can actually still check this. This is correct. We still have to say if self.error handler is none, no handler for 404s. That's still good. Now, let's do it this way. I don't want, I need to construct handlers here differently, but I need to get the error handler. So I want to do this right by doing, let error handler equal match on self.error handler. That's going to have two arms, some, it's going to be that, the error handler, and none is where we bail that there's no handler for 404 errors. Now error handler must be something. We pull it out of here. We don't set this. And now we can define our handler struct correctly. Handlers is going to be that. Oh, expected. Yeah. Let's construct it here. Like that. Now we can just pass on handlers like we did before. There we go. Okay, so that's clean. Registering handlers now. All of our handlers are valid. We're not multiplexing this here. How do we handle the error handler? We sort of need to make a decision here. Do we allow it to be overridden, or do we make it so that they can't register the error handler more than once? Let's go ahead and do it right. So it's going to feel weird. If let yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to replace it with handler. We can do that. We can do this. It's kind of a better way to do it. Oh, we need to box it. It's not a better way to do it. The reason why I'm doing this is like, it even eats self here, but it forces you to make sure that you only register the error handler once. Sort of a nasty way to do it, but it's okay. There are different ways that we could do this. So our server builder, our error handler is going to be none. And running this, we pass in handlers, but the handle connection, we don't have a handler map now. We have a handlers object. So now we have to get our that, we're not getting some. We're getting our request here. We actually don't need to clone that anymore, so that fixed that problem. Now the error handler is going to be handlers dot error handler. Let's get a reference to that. Now we can take out all of those concessions that we made because we must have an error handler. It just simply exists. So let's go to the code, register error handler here. I'll have to just put a question mark in there to bubble up that. And, right? Register, oh, because we're not returning. There we go. Almost every function should return a result or an option. It's not entirely true, but it's close. So here, we just do that. And here. So we did make a huge breaking change, but definitely for the better, I'm going to say. So these videos are long, but they're really important. And if you follow these sorts of ideas, you end up with code that can't be written incorrectly. So this is where we're actually taking advantage of the builder pattern, because as you're building up your server, you're adding handlers. This is growing dynamically. You may not, as you're building this up, have an error handler immediately. Now we could do this where we say, in order to create a, well, actually, let me give an alternate design for this. So while you're building this up, we say, okay, we're going to programmatically build up our handlers, and then we're going to be able to programmatically give an error handler. So this exists in a possibly invalid state. Okay. That's fine, because once we try to finalize this, we validate everything, that we can do all of our bindings, we can bind to what we need to, and that the error handler does exist. That's sort of a prerequisite. So I'm gonna put that. I'm actually gonna put that up here, because we should probably do that before we do any additional bindings. So we make sure that that exists. We error out there, because we can. The server requires a handler's object that must define both valid handlers and a error handler. You cannot create a server without a singular error handler. And then in the server, where we handle the error condition, we just handle the error condition. And actually, let me do it this way. And I'm not necessarily doing that for like code reduction. Like admittedly, that's a little bit more challenging to read. And actually, because that's a little bit more challenging to read, what I'd like to do is change that to, say, impl handlers and handle error. So that's a better way to do that maybe. So in our handles, we could do that. It's 6 of one, half of those, dozen of another. I don't know that helps out, but we've certainly reduced our error handling to something that's not making concessions or justifying why something bad is okay, or doing different paths depending on different configurations of that. Can you imagine like doing testing of that if you had to do like code coverage for that, and you have to test each branch? Then you have to construct a server that has a error handler, and you have to construct a server that doesn't have an error handler, only for the sole purpose of being able to check two different paths. And if you eliminate paths, it's not for performance. It's so that like you know exactly how it's going to go through, and I know exactly how this is going to go through here at the point of creation of the server. It's not doing funky stuff. So I want to get rid of the funky stuff that's going on in this in the parsers, because I can't tell exactly what I'm going to get. I mean, I can, but it's trying to help out bad users, and we want to make it not help out bad users, and we also want to make it so that, and from this code point of view, that you cannot generate bad code that we have to try to work around. Okay, this is good. I think it was good. But unfortunately, these are getting to be like 20-minute videos. But I really want to explain the reasons why, because it's the reasons why that are important and allows you to write that correct code that you never have to go back to.